Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Gyananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Namo Aniruddhaya Hrishikeshendriyatmane Namah Paramahamsaya Purnaya Nivritatmane Swarga Pavarga Dwaraya Nityam Suchi Sade Namah Namah Hiranyaviryaya Chaturhotraya Tantave Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, this is a continuation of our discussion on the Siksastakam prayers, the 8 verses sung by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. These are extracted from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and we are extracting, or rather, we are discussing the realizations of our predecessor acharyas, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, both of whom have offered commentaries, and then I'm also drawing from a commentary written by His Divine Grace Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. So, in the past few weeks, which is almost around 3 weeks odd, we have been having discussions on the first verse, which gives us a good detailed view of the 7 perfections one attains through the chanting of the holy names. In the second verse, which is verse number 2, we also were able to take a look at different aspects of the process or the Yuga Dharma from the viewpoint or the vantage point of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. So we recognized that he makes a clear distinction in verse 2 that our process is very different from the regular process of spiritual attainment which is described in the Vedas. We are beyond the normal rules and regulations which the Vedas enjoin for the process of karma kanda, which is to attain fruitive desires, or for even jnana kanda. We are beyond all of that. We have our rules, but we do not impose rules for the sake of imposing rules. In other words, it is not so much a process which has become stringent, which makes it very difficult for people to access. It is being distributed freely, and in that sense has no rules whatsoever. And there is also Mahaprabhu's sense of lamentation in the previous verse, that even though 7 different perfections are being offered, even though the process of chanting the holy names, which is the Yuga Dharma, is extraordinarily simple, or rather so accessible to everyone in different parts of the world, in whatever state they may be in, immaterial of race, immaterial of proximity to the Vedic paradigm, immaterial of gender, whatsoever be the case, there really isn't any inhibition. You see, we are really the equal opportunity employer. You see, sometimes we see the disclaimer on the websites of different organizations or in organizational rules where they say that they don't discriminate based on anything. We are truly that. We really are that. We don't discriminate on any aspect which is connected to this material world. And Mahaprabhu makes it very clear that we are very distinguished, we are very different, but then there's also a sense of lamentation. That when the process is so easy and when it is offering so much in return, why is it that there's such an unfortunate position of a lack of taste? Why is there an unfortunate position of people not taking up the process actively? Or those who take up the process are also so unfortunate that they're not able to maintain the process over a period of one lifetime. It's a big achievement. It's a big achievement to have a consistent practice of being able to chant and being able to read scripture, being able to associate, and so on and so forth. It's a very big attainment to have an entire lifetime of being able to do that. Why so? Mahaprabhu's lamentation is quite elaborate, and it is very clear in the second verse. He says it's durdevam, it's unfortunate. So we discussed that. We discussed the craziness which is a part of our existence in the material world, which practically disqualifies us even from a process that has no unwanted artificial rules and regulations. disqualifies from the highest goal of life, disqualifies us from even attaining something which is so easily given and which is so accessible. Where Krishna himself descends, and then Krishna sends his servants who are special, because this cannot be given by anyone material. It had to be arranged by someone who had complete realizations from the spiritual sky. All of this was arranged, but we could not take advantage. That lamentation was the focus in the previous two sessions. Today, it's a very special verse. And the reason it is a special verse is not so much because we are practically, after entering into Krishna consciousness, we have heard this verse being uttered by everyone. People who understand the verse, people who don't understand the verse. Everybody talks about it. Okay, which is quite interesting because it is actually quite a famous verse in that sense that everybody talks about this verse, everybody quotes it, everybody says things which they feel in a manner in which they've understood the meaning and the essence of this verse, right? So the verse itself is trinad Api Sunicena, taror Iva Sahisnuna, amanina Manadena, kirtaniya Sada Hari. So it is trinad Api Sunicena, which is trina. Trina is a blade of grass. Trinad Api Sunicena is where one becomes as humble or as flexible or as malleable as a blade of grass. If one were to step on a blade of grass, the grass bends down, gives way. It does not really stand in the way, like a hard twig or a branch which can possibly break if someone steps on. But the grass just simply allows someone to step on it. It doesn't really bother. Trinad Api Sunicena, which is an extreme description of what is required. Taror Iva Sahisnuna, being as tolerant as a tree. Branches of a tree can be cut. Branches of a tree can be maimed. A tree can be uprooted. All kinds of indignities can be imposed upon the tree, but the tree is so tolerant. It's a picture of tolerance. In one sense, nature gives us so many clues on what we ought to be. And Mahaprabhu says, this is a qualifying verse. Amani na Manadena. Okay? Not being affected by false pride, amani. And then to be able to offer respect to others, Manadena. So these are four conditions in one sense. One is being as humble as a blade of grass, being tolerant as a tree, and then being devoid of false pride, but being able to give respect to everyone else. That would allow us to consistently maintain and chant the holy names, kirtaniya Sada Hari. Kirtaniya Sada Hari is an extraordinarily important statement because kirtaniya Sada Hari is manmanabha madbhakto madhyajivam namaskuru. One cannot do Sada Hari, kirtaniya Sada Hari. One cannot do that because that is the highest level of attainment. And what is the pre-qualification for the highest level of attainment? To be as humble as a blade of grass, to be as tolerant as a tree, to be completely free of false pride, which is born of identifying with this body, and also to be very easily to be able to respect others. So the translation is one should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. Trinad Api Sunicena. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respects to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. So this particular stage, which is being described here of Kirtaniya Sada Hari, equates to Manmanabha Madbhakto Madhyajivam Namaskuru, which is 18.65 in the Bhagavad Gita. So this is actually talking about what Krishna is saying is the most confidential instruction of all. And he says, you should be able to chant my name constantly. But here Mahaprabhu is qualifying that statement and saying that for you to be able to chant constantly, you have to have these preconditions or pre-qualifications. These secondary qualifications, why am I using the word secondary? Because this in itself is not a goal for us. This in itself is not a goal. Kirtaniya Sada Hari is a goal, but Trinad Api Sunicena, taror Iva Sahisnuna, amani Manadena, all of that is complementary. Okay, complementary to the original swarup of the jiva. The jiva, when he is able or she is able to chant constantly, when one has recognized and one has completely assimilated, or in other words, when one has fallen in love, with Krishna, then one is able to chant constantly. And at that point in time, the secondary characteristics of humility, the secondary characteristics of being completely free from false pride, and then also being able to give respect to others, being tolerant, all of this is also fully manifest. Both qualities are manifest. Why are we saying secondary? Because these are complementary qualities. And these complementary qualities are not being worked at by us, but we are working towards kirtaniya Sada Hari, which is what we're doing with the chanting process. We want to be able to develop, nishta in the process. We want to become steady in the process. We want to develop ruchi. We want to develop taste. We want to be able to develop ashakti, attachment, and ultimately develop emotions, and then crystallize and condense those emotions into the love of Godhead, prema. And that is kirtaniya Sada Hari. And all of this is something which would also accompany kirtaniya Sada Hari. Kirtaniya Sada Hari would come. So, but then we want to discuss as to how and what is preventing us from experiencing trinad Api Sunicena. What is it what is this whole topic of humility all about? Because we keep hearing about it. We hear Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, wear this on your forehead. Wear this verse on your forehead, because this is the most important verse. And the reason is because this verse and these conditions are describing the process. They are describing the final state. They are also describing the process. They are describing the process through which one may be able to attain kirtaniya Sada Hari. So it is almost a qualification of the process, and these qualities become fully evident at the highest level of being able to do kirtaniya Sada Hari, which is the opposite side of it. Okay. Now, first, let us talk a little bit about humility, because there are conceptions, there could be misconceptions. Humility is a foreign term when it comes to being materially successful. Okay, people really don't give accolades for being humble. There are no brownie points in the material world for becoming humble. There aren't, because it's not a condition of the material sky. It's the opposite. So let's talk about humility so that we may understand what it is. Is it a situation where we normally say, oh, that devotee is so humble, or this devotee is so humble? But then we also read in Madhurya Kadambini that sometimes you may develop good qualities such as humility and so on and so forth. It may manifest itself even before someone attains Swarup Siddhi. It may manifest itself even before someone, for instance, attains the highest level. Some people are naturally humble. Okay, so we need to be able to distinguish that here we are not just talking about humility. We are not talking about being tolerant. We are not talking about being prideless or being devoid of false pride. Neither are we merely focusing on being able to respect others. All of this has to accompany kirtaniya Sada Hari. If kirtaniya Sada Hari, which is manmanabha madbhakto, is missing, or one has not developed taste and one has not developed emotions, then the qualities of humility and tolerance and so on are respected, but they are not what Mahaprabhu is talking about. You have to be very careful in understanding what is the goal of life. The goal of life is not to become humble. The goal of life is to become Krishna Premi, to become a lover of God, to attain Swarup. So you have to focus, or we have to focus on being able to chant with humility so that we can attain Krishna Prema. We don't want to get derailed in understanding, because sometimes we will notice that some devotees, because of their nature, they are this way. They exude a certain level of simplicity. They exude a certain level of humility. Okay, but we don't want to simply focus on one aspect. We want to focus on both. Okay, so let's understand humility very carefully, because it has to be contextual for us. Okay, so the first point we want to make about humility is humility, or being humble, according to our acharyas, according to the verse given here, is a state of being able to accept the arrangements made by Krishna in our life and having the courage to act upon the same so that we may be able to make progress. That is humility. Go back to the battlefield of Kurukshetra. If we go back to the battlefield of Kurukshetra 5,000 years back, what was expected of Arjun? Arjun was considered humble because he accepted the arrangement made by Krishna. He accepted the arrangement and the challenge and the exact environment which is being provided by the Supreme Lord. And then he had the courage to act upon it. He was a Kshatriya. He was not acting externally as one would expect, someone in ISKCON to act. Because, we have an ISKCON standard. ISKCON, you get respected if you're humble, right? In one sense. So he's a very humble devotee that requires accolades. So sometimes it becomes a situation where everybody is trying to beat each other to become humble, which is very nice. But the point which I want to make here is that there is a contextual reference. The contextual reference here is Arjun was not expected to fall at everybody's feet and grow well and all that because he was a general. But what was expected of him was his ability to accept the circumstances imposed upon him by Krishna and to have the courage to act upon it. That is humility. That is humility. Okay? He was not like this, he basically allowed himself to be used. He had the ability to step aside, accept Krishna's arrangement. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, surrender, sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja, aham svam sarva papebhyo mokshayasmi ma suchaha. Arjun surrendered. He accepted the environment. It was a very complex, challenging environment. And then he executed the mission wanted by Krishna. That is humility. That is the actual definition of humility. Now let's take a look to see how this fits in with the definition of being humble as a blade of grass and being tolerant. Okay? Being humble as a blade of grass requires that one becomes very flexible in being able to accept Krishna's arrangement. It does. One has to be able to accept Krishna's arrangement as with love, that Krishna loves me, he has made an arrangement for me, and that arrangement is a snapshot of what we are seeing today. It could have several complications in terms of different aspects of our life as we see it. It may not be an arrangement which we would love having. Okay? Okay? If we may not be able to, basically, we may not be able to, we may not be able to like what Krishna is providing. However, what we must do is be able to accept the circumstances that are being provided by Krishna exactly as what Krishna has arranged and accept it, that okay, this is Krishna's love for us. Krishna desires the very best. Krishna has made an arrangement which will help us move forward to the next level. At any given time, if we have this attitude that the arrangement which is being made for us is Krishna's arrangement, and if we accept it as Krishna's arrangement, that is humility. That could be that you have someone telling you to do something. It could be that could be some kind of a challenging environment. So this acceptance is humility because we are accepting as Krishna's arrangement, very specifically. We'll take a few examples to make this more clear as we go along. Okay, that is the first step.